Hi, I'm Matthias Krings at Catenion. I would like to talk a little bit about portfolio level asset comparison. Surely you heard before that one can only compare apples to apples. Well, in biopharma R&D portfolio management, that's not good enough. Projects are diverse and different in nature, yet they must be compared in a fair way so as to enable prioritization and ranking. It's therefore essential to establish a system of dimensions relevant to assessment agreed upon by all stakeholders, and that's project teams, functional leaders, and decision makers. Portfolio managers serve as neutral agents interacting with teams to collect and assess project data, with functions to collect specific area expertise, and with decision makers to support prioritization. Of course, certain groups of projects can be easier or harder to compare. The most important divide is typically POC, that stands for proof of concept. Pre-POC projects typically are plenty, have higher risk and less data available. Conversely, post-POC projects are typically fewer, have eliminated significant risk by passing POC, and have more data available. The objective of portfolio management is to inform prioritization decisions. This prioritization is the basis for allocation of resources to projects, and in our experience it's useful to work with categories of priorities. And these are priority 1, we call it accelerate a project to the extent that that is even possible. Priority 2, resource the project as required to pursue its base plan. Clarify. All projects have issues sometimes, and these can be regular issues. Resource only to the clarification of a potential showstopper, then review the project again and prioritize it. And another category, stop, meaning resource the project for orderly termination at a defined date and maybe a defined milestone like an attempt to partner or sell the asset. As explained in our video on early stage projects, early stage assets have greater scientific and technical uncertainty than post-POC projects, especially when dealing with novel targets, novel MOAs, and/or novel modalities. Often there are several indications that could be addressed. As such, several choices have to be made about the most suitable road to proof of concept. To inform these decisions appropriately, early-stage project assessment must cover the options at hand in several dimensions, which indications to pursue and in what sequence. For example, what is a viable product in each of the indications addressable? We cover this in product visions. What are the R&D risks of the project and what is its probability of success to arrive at proof of concept? We cover this in the R&D risk assessment. What is the commercial potential per indication? We cover this in, guess what, the commercial assessment. And then how do these indications and these dimensions fit together? We do this in the consolidation and development strategy. Of course, these are also the dimensions for comparison across early stage projects, the early stage portfolio, and this can be done in various formats. For example, does the project have a clear POC indication? Is the option space beyond this POC indication narrow or is it broad? Is there a strategic fit for the top indications? Are these, for example, indications that are part of the corporate disease map and have product visions for these indications been established? What is the balance of risk versus return across early stage projects? What are project probabilities of success and what are R&D hurdles? What is the level of competitive pressure versus addressable patients? What is the commercial potential versus number of competitors? And what is the historic probability of success and cost of development versus, for example, the commercial potential? Of course, every company and decision-making committee have their own preferences for analytics and visualizations. At Catenion, we have seen and used a huge variety. We can draw on a breadth of blueprint variants and, importantly, if I might say, we can suggest which ones are really the most useful. Similarly, for late-stage portfolios. As we explained in our video on late-stage assets, they have less scientific and technical uncertainty than pre-POC assets. Ideally, a proof of concept has been demonstrated in an indication that is clinically and commercially viable and relevant. And the better the fit of clinical endpoints, doses, and patient populations in the POC trial for use in the pivotal confirmatory trials, the more robust that POC result is. Now, given the greater investment of money, time, and resources in the full development of POC assets, greater emphasis has been laid on quantitative assessment when assessing the projects. As such, the late-stage assessment of portfolios aims to quantify the opportunities and risks of all these projects. For example, indications selected and priority sequence for development and launch. Next is commercial opportunity, target product profiles and market environments and their scenarios. Sales forecasts, risks, and of course there are technical risks. We cover them in R&D risks. They go into scientific, clinical, and regulatory as well. And of course there are also financial risks. And what's important is then to cover the financial valuation, which we do by virtue of ENPVs, expected net present value, and step-up ENPVs. And of course, what's covered on the project level is then later also used for comparing at the portfolio level. And a late-stage portfolio could be compared by starting with a Gantt chart of development phases, transitions, and launch dates of all the assets. For example, per TA portfolio, if the portfolio is large, or by modality, if different modalities are pursued. Now, next, we would consider a bar chart of peak sales per asset and the first peak year, both risk-adjusted and non-risk-adjusted. Next could be sales curves, both risk-adjusted and non-risk-adjusted for all the assets in the late-stage portfolio. Then a curve of the ENPV versus the remaining development costs, projects then sorted by that ratio, starting with the highest ENPV versus cost. This is often referred to as the bang for the buck plot. I'm sure you've heard that. Add to this a step-up ENPV bar chart of investment versus value increase, and then again projects sorted in such a ratio. Then, for example, tactical, strategic, and positioning considerations. Think of diagnosed patients versus number of drugs in development in the lead indication. Is recruitment even possible in the clinical trials? Then consider addressable patients for all drugs expected to launch, attrition adjusted or not, in the indication setting in question. Then consider franchise context. How do different assets fit into the therapeutic area or indication portfolio of assets that your company has in the market already? These are just a few examples of how assets can be compared in a meaningful way to inform important decisions in prioritization and resource allocation for late-stage assets. Interested? Well then, connect with Catenion today to learn more.